Welcome back to another episode of Business Journey Unlocked. I'm here today with Carl J. Cox, CEO of 40 Strategy and 40 Accountant. Carl works with CEOs and leadership teams to bring clarity to growth, execution, and financial decision making, helping organizations move from reactive operations to intentional strategy and profitability. Carl, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm going to turn it over to you so you can give the listeners the brief and quick overview of what you've been doing.
Hey, Kevin, that was a pretty good summary. Thank you much. It's always an honor to be on a podcast. And so thank you for that. Yeah, you said it pretty well. I mean, little background, it's crazy. It's reaching up on 30 years of actual
Wow.
experience since graduating from the University of Washington, becoming a CPA. And it's been a fun journey. I've been very fortunate to be able to grow and raise a family and go through that whole process, but also to help, become an entrepreneur. I've been in 7 different companies, gone from 2x to 7x in size. And I've done that from within companies. And today we do that in helping companies from a consulting type basis to help be able to get those same type of results. And it's been awesome. It's not luck, when these things take place. It's not easy work, but you can accelerate it. And that's what we do. We've learned the research, had the real experience. And what's fun is you can apply this to nearly any company. If you're willing to learn and you're willing to change your habits, you can have extraordinary results. And that's what we do with our companies. We try to get them ready for sale if they're interested in that. Really love to do is create oil wells. So meaning a company can build to a level where the founder can actually get to a point where they're acting more like a shareholder. And so then they can actually truly have real freedom of being outside of their company if they choose to, or they could still be a rainmaker if they want. But that's what's fantastic. And then for those who are willing to sell and want to get out of their business, we help people get to that level as well. We've had from modest successes to we recently had a company that came in struggling, is worth zero by definition. And in 2 years, we turned around and sold it for $50 million just this last September. And so we've had some really fun successes as well. And so, yeah. So anyways, and yes, we have 2 separate businesses. One is a strategy business, which what we described, where we take business owners, we take leadership teams, and we help them go from, once again, de-risking the business and helping them to grow their EBITDA, meaning their revenue and earnings, and also help them to decrease their risk, increase their multiple. But then we also have a CPA firm where we do from bookkeeping to financial reporting and analysis, tax work, or any one of those respective areas. And so we're trying, and the really fun thing is we've now, to help us expand, we've created workshops where 40 business owners can get together and learn from other experts to help create their plans to help grow their business. And so that's been a lot of fun. And so sorry, the plug there, but that's what we do. And it's been a lot of fun. Our goal is to get to 10,000 business owners over the next 5 years. And so we're on the hunt, we're on the journey to 10x over the next 3 years for ourselves.
Where are you at right now?
In terms of number of business owners that we've
Yes,
impacted,
sir.
we are far below that 10,000. We're at the probably, practically speaking, we're in the hundreds. And that's why, once again, we have to 10x to get to that BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal level. But that's why we're moving to workshops. We're ultimately going to get to a point where we're doing about 12 a year. We're creating a work beginning in Q2 of 2026. We'll start having a course, a DIY course that will actually be using alongside that we do as well for our actual clients that we provide. And then our accounting business is really helping us to expand to get to all our clients as well because of the demand for services that we have. So it will be a stretch, but we're going to get there.
It's definitely doable, especially with the mindset and credibility that you have. I find the most beautiful thing is just going along the journey of the company. You started that company, as you mentioned earlier, with zero. In 2 years, you sold for 50 million. Some people that never done that before don't understand the true feeling that comes out of doing that. It's beautiful. I love that. So going on 40 strategy, what exactly was the core reason as to why you started? Did you see a gap in the market in which that you thought the captain method that you have was the only way to solve it?
It's a great question. So how I got into this current business is sort of like your experience, Kevin, how you were moonlighting and you were thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, right? And going off on your own. And I have done that multiple times where I've started up a business while I had another business. And one of the businesses I started up in a moonlighting and then ended up doing full time was I opened up the US office for the strategic planning company based out of Australia called Cascade Strategy.
Mhm.
The surprise so we grew that business from 50 clients to about 450 clients in 3 years. And we went from 5% to 50% of the global business in 3 years. And so we had this really awesome climb. It was really exciting. The surprise is that I thought, because of my past experience, everybody knew strategic planning and execution. I found out that that was not true. And so what was happening is our clients weren't actively continuing to use the software. So on necessity, I started doing consulting and traveling around the United States and the Caribbean, helping out clients with their strategic planning execution. And we received great results, regularly receiving amazing feedback about, matter of fact, Kevin, I was with a client down in Phoenix about a year before I left 40 Strategy, and 2 hours in the meeting, he pulled me aside and said, Carl, I would have paid you $10,000 just for that last 2 hours of information.
That's beautiful.
And I remember going, that's almost as much as he's paid for an entire year of software, our travel, and the implementation, and this consulting arrangement that we had. So it was this kind of big, I planted that aside. I remember turning to the person aside, I think I'm in the wrong business. Well, a year later, the CEO of Australia, we were actually on the Sydney Harbor, no kidding, on a sea kayak, beautiful environment, sea kayaking in this, it's just amazing. And Tom Wright, he said, Carl, why don't you now create and run my global consulting unit? And it was an amazing opportunity. Would have had a bunch of built-in clients, would have been traveling the world regularly. But I got 4 kids, as I mentioned before. I didn't mention I had 4, but I have 4 kids. 3 of the 4 have ended up playing college sports. And I would have missed seeing that and being present during that. And so I politely declined, rolled off and transitioned the company to the existing people that were there. And I started 40 Strategy. And so that's how the business came about. It came about as a desire to do the things that I think needed to be done for clients. We use the software a little bit, but I really more turned into consulting rather than a software provider at that point. So that's why 40 Strategy is created out of demand. But just to clarify, that was not a welcome. The missus, meaning my wife of now nearly 30 years, she was not happy of me having another entrepreneurial opportunity. She was very reluctant. Here we have these kids in college, getting ready to go to college. She's like, not again. I don't want to do another entrepreneurial. Because when you're an entrepreneur, usually your income's not consistent. There's a lot more stress, often, not always, but often with having an entrepreneur. And so she, matter of fact, we had one of our worst fights we ever had prior to making the decision of doing it. And fortunately, after a really big disagreement, she reluctantly agreed, and she's like, all right, well, you better prove it and show it to me that you could get it done. And so she became the show me state. If you're familiar with Missouri, that's kind of like their thing. And so what was really exciting, and I was very fortunate, within 3 months, I had more income than I had in any other company, because we were that successful to start. It was an awesome start. Problem was COVID hit. And so what I didn't share with you is we originally were giving 10% of our revenue, not just net income, but revenue, to charity. And so because of COVID, none of our clients were in where we're based. I was traveling around to go see them. And so I was giving more in charity in May of 2020 than I was receiving, meaning 90% of my revenue had dropped. And so it was very humbling. And I was like, wow, where is this going to go next? But, just had faith that it was going to go through, really believed. And once I kind of committed and surrendered how it was going to happen, we started having tremendous success. And so that's when I started getting involved with serving private equity clients as well as privately held clients. and really started taking off from there. It was about right around June of 2020 where we started getting traction again. And so it was really interesting. I was traveling just domestically within US. I wasn't afraid to travel during COVID. And so that actually was a benefit for me, while other people weren't willing to. And so I was willing to go, and I could tell you a ton of interesting stories about that, just the differences of opinion depending on where you live. But it was just fascinating. And so that's how it happened. That's how it grew and went about. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to make this. So there was challenges with the family. There was challenge with the business. There was challenge with COVID. And, but now here we are. It's kind of amazing. We're actually in our 7th year of business. So we just passed the dial, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to be an entrepreneur, to have staff, and make a difference in their lives, and also make the difference in the lives for our clients.
That's beautiful. And it truly does show the risk you have because you believed in yourself, you believed in the process, and it's just applying those principles into what you believed was true. And it came into fruition. Like you said yourself, 7 years later, you're doing amazing. It's beautiful. You didn't, I mean, sure, yeah, there'll be challenges on the way, there'll be some turbulence, but it's from the fact is you stayed consistent. You came every single day even though it was not a good day, even though you may have been under one day and up another, but it's from the fact is consistency is the main basis that everyone should follow. And it's just doing little stuffs, little activities every single day. It doesn't have to be a huge opportunity, but it's from the fact is the little habits build into the biggest opportunities, the biggest foundation. And that's the most beautiful thing that anybody can do. So many people think that they should go head in and just solve everything at once. That's not how true CEOs work. They focus on one problem and they tackle that head on, and they go on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, and it's just building blocks. That's all it really comes down to.
That's when it's done well, for sure. Right. I think one of the challenges of entrepreneurs and a lot of people is we do have this um, desire to do many things. And that's
Mhm.
actually one of the biggest challenges we run with other companies is that we want to do everything. But you're right. Those who focus on the few things and try to do it well typically have the most success.
Starting a business, it's very easy to say yes to anybody that comes, any prospects, any clientele. So obviously, the standards you have changed from when you first started to where you are 7 years later. So based on that, what kind of systems or principles that do you see in companies that make you not so hesitant on working with them and just going along that standard?
That's an interesting question. We see companies of all different size. Honestly, the only thing we ask for companies is their willingness to change.
Mm,
So when we run into companies, that red flags for me is when I run into prospects or just people out there and they're like, and they'll make comments like this. I've read all the books. Um, I've been in my industry for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. I've got this. And I don't know about you, but when I, perhaps get an opportunity to walk into a Barnes and Noble library, right, a bookstore, and I'll go into the store and there's a few sections that I've definitely read more of the books. And that's most typically it's going to be more in the business section, right? Where I've read, quite a few of those books that are in there or listened to them. And so you get this little bit of confidence of like, I know this. I read that. You get a little bit of confidence, but it doesn't take long for me to walk down an aisle or two more, and I might be familiar with an author or two in an aisle, but not be familiar at all. And then I'll go in another section, and I won't have any clue what's in those other areas. We love working with people who are humble and are learners, and recognize that they might be good today, but they can know they could be better tomorrow. And those are our best clients. Those who have a willingness. The reality is why people get stuck is because They aren't willing to change the people and the process and the systems around them. And when I get brought in by private equity firms for turnarounds, it's those who feel like I've got this are the ones who end up don't sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we typically see is I don't honestly care how messy a company is. I actually kind of like mess, because it's easier to, so many things to fix, so many things to improve. So once again, I just want that willingness to, I want to grow. I want to be better. I'm not satisfied where I am today. And that's what's fun for me is working with people who have that type of growth mindset.
I agree. Those are the best people to interact with. Essentially, what I like to view is you can lead a horse to water, but you can let the horse drink it. If they're not willing to learn, if not, they're not willing to change, change is very hard. The brain doesn't like change. But in order to grow, to prosper, you need to be involved in uncomfortable situations in order to grow. That's just plain and simple. But there's so many people that are afraid of the unknown, afraid of going and stepping into the deep end. That's, again, as I mentioned, that's the best way to do it. You may not know what's going to happen. You may not see what's ahead of you, but as long as you trust the process, as long as they have you by their side as well, what more can they ask for? Because you've done this countless of times. Like you said, with this company in particular, 7 years you've been doing it, time and time after again. The messy, the better. I love that. I love that. Based on your professional opinion, with the way the market's going, with especially going into 2026, what are 2 or 3 shifts that you're personally seeing in the market that other people in the business world should be well aware of to sort of future proof their business?
There's no such thing as future proofing.
No?
Yeah, because but what there is, I view the market today as this. You're familiar of a tsunami, right? The concept of tsunami.
Yeah.
What I see in the marketplace right now is there are these rumblings happening underneath the Pacific Ocean, and a tsunami when you're out in Hawaii, before it hits the continent, is this tiny little wave that's maybe 4, 6 inches, 8 inches high, but it's going at a really fast rate. But by the time it gets to the shore, this massive wave destructs the area that it ultimately hits. That's what's happening right now in the market that people aren't aware.
Mm.
There is a speed of AI that we cannot keep up with. Matter of fact, if you're going to do anything, what you should be doing is grabbing on to, like, I think of a jet ski, and you want to hold on for your dear life and grab those skis and get on the journey, the speed, and hope to hang on. What scares me are those who are deciding not to change, because those are the ones who are going to get swallowed by the tsunami over the next few years. They don't realize that their competition is working because of the democratization of AI, which is basically tools like ChatGPT, language learning models, the ability to be able to pop up and create a company quickly, to take over your marketing, to make your Google AdWords feel almost meaningless, to may not even have any content anymore because you thought what you were doing was working in the past. People will be stealing your talent because they have talent and they have the money to be able to pay you because you're competing against private equity, which you didn't even know it existed. If you aren't moving fast to adopt change, you're at high risk. And so that's why I challenge the concept of future proofing, because the future is moving so fast and so dynamic. It requires us to change constantly, and only those who are willing to put in the concepts around to adopt these and to put in what's working and to be willing to change and pivot frequently, those are the ones that are going to survive and, if you may, thrive. I love this environment since I'm a change agent. I'm somebody who loves being a part of change. I love it. It's scary too, though. We are actively and regularly adopting AI technologies, but I don't want to make it sound like an expert. We're not. But I am aware, I'm aware, I want to be saying not fully, we're aware of the impact and changes that's happening and taking place. And we're excited to be a small little dent in that process to get there. And what we love to do is to help companies to survive this, to get on the jet ski, right? And start being pulled in the back of the boat by this massive power that's taking place, because the gap, Trent Gillespie, who's from Stellus AI, who we work with, the gap between people using and non-using AI is now 6x.
Wow.
And that's going to only grow, this
Hmm.
gap, right? And so, you do the numbers on this. This is why, once again, the people who aren't learning, they're gonna be swallowed up. And what is it going to look like to them? Like, for example, my brother-in-law happens to work at Oracle. And, Oracle is one of the most successful companies in the US, right? They're planning to double in the next 3 years. But what's crazy is half the employees have the fear of God they're going to lose their job because they are not adopting AI. And matter of fact, anybody who is showing any sense of we're not going to do that is just being shown the door.
Hmm.
And so this is that mentality of being open to learning. So I guess the future proofing, if there is any such a thing, Kevin, is being willing to change, being willing to adopt, willing to change on the news. That's going to give you a better chance of surviving the future than anything else.
I see your perspective and I agree everything that you just said. It's from the fact, the way I see artificial intelligence going, it's constantly evolving every single day. We don't know what it could be 2 years from now, let alone 2 decades, right? I mean, you said it yourself, it's 6x people that are adopting it. Sure, I mean, there's different areas in which people use AI, the LLMs. If you're using it for more of a business development sense, that's beautiful. That's perfect. There's so many other people that use it for personal sense, simple, mundane tasks. Like, how does that benefit you? It doesn't at all. And it's actually hurting you. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of people that are fearful from the fact that AI, if they don't adopt it, they're going to be left behind, especially in the job market. Naturally, there will be jobs that would come into fruition, but also there will be jobs that would kind of be settling down. That happens. That's natural. That's life. That's the way the market works. Okay. But it's from the fact is people don't understand and adopt that. I would be looking at everything if I was an employee that's considering using AI and helping them out. It just depends on certain situations, of course. Then people talk about the credibility, or obviously you shouldn't solely depend on it. Trust but verify. That's the biggest thing. But it's also about confidentiality. There's a big topic of concern as well. There's so many, it's so new that there's so much guidelines that are constantly coming out too. And it's just going to get better. And in some areas, it might be a little difficult to navigate. But as long as you're able to put in the change, as we both agree upon, that's the only thing you can do. And we're at an
Yeah.
interesting stage now where anything could happen. Anything.
Yeah. Once again, I'm quoting Trent Gillespie. Is we got to stop looking as ChatGPT and other tools. We got to stop looking at that as a tool. We have to start using them as an operating system.
Hmm.
And when we have that mentality that it is the place where you go to do your CRM, to write your marketing materials, to hire your employees, to process your products, to do your say SOPs. See, then it becomes your operating system. And that's the fruit of it's amazing how much, once again, cost effective we can help do things when we're thinking about that through that mentality. If we're caught in our old software is going to solve the world's problems, Well, you've probably maximized what it could do anyways right now, right? You've been living on one thing or another, and so I think the other way to cheat, Kevin, is do aligning with other software companies that are maximizing the use of AI, and so you could take advantage of that, ideally at a relatively low cost rate.
Hmm.
But those are the ways of doing things differently and maximizing them. But yeah, that's the stuff we love. We use it every day. And it's becoming more and more. It isn't operating for us today, but it's becoming one. And I would say probably by the end of 2026, we will have a significant amount of our standards built on AI.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. For the CEOs and founders that I've come across onto this podcast, the two major areas that I see that either they struggle or they're very successful in is generating demand, as in sales for you, or delivering fulfillment. There's so many areas, so much different sections. One thing could just monopolize and just have everything fall into catastrophe. So, given the systems that you have in place, if you could fix anything that's kind of slowing down in your operating system, your front end, your sales, because it seems like you got the sales down already, as you mentioned before. Based on that, is there anything that you or other people in a similar stance as you, as in the niche you're in, should be looking out for?
Well, I'll speak to what we're doing. It might be more relevant with that question. We're doing well and very well. We've had a record year in 2025,
Awesome.
and we're planning to continue to grow and maximize. Once again, we have a significant growth rate plans over the next 3 years. But what that means is to do that, we can't settle on what we're doing today.
Mm,
And so the biggest challenge we have today is historically the vast majority of our sales have come through referral. And so it's been great. Once again, we've had a very successful business, which is generally through that. But once again, think of what let's just for simple math, we want to have 10 workshops with 40 people that are 400 people. Well, let's assume even the numbers are right and we can get 1% of those people of strangers to come to our event, right? That means we have to touch 40,000
mhm,
potential leads, right? So then we can actually convert them to sales. So that is what we're building right now. We're building those tools right now, leveraging AI significantly to generate a marketing machine. And then the next step behind that process is then solidify the sales machine behind it. They're two separate pieces. One is creating the leads, the other one is processing the leads. And so that's our biggest efforts that we're doing over this next year, and we'll be doing, frankly, continuing to refine it over the next 3. But that's what I think is critical. Once again, it depends what you do, how you're doing it. Um, but I will say this: what you're doing, Kevin, right now is brilliant. Having a podcast. Why is it brilliant? Well, first of all, you're developing relationships and increasing your network. That's what we've done with all the podcasts that we've done over time. Is every time we record a podcast, we connect with a brilliant person that has a lot to learn, a lot to say, a lot of connections, and we develop those connections through it. So that's one big thing. But the second thing um, that we get through it is we are creating content. That content is now being seen. So funny little story. So my name's Carl Cox. Okay, who's Carl Cox? Well, if you look up on typical Google who Carl Cox is, you'll see a famous DJ out of the United Kingdom, out of London, named Carl Cox. Looks very different than me. He's about 300 pounds and much darker complexion than I am. So that's Carl Cox, the DJ. Well, so that's why I use Carl J. Cox, by the way, because I
mm,
wouldn't be found
okay.
on Google without using the J. I'm not trying to be ostentatious with that. I'm doing it to actually differentiate my name and be seen. But under ChatGPT searches, I am now also seen with Carl Cox, the DJ. It recommends me also. So I couldn't beat the world of Google over the history. Now, what's cool is because we have been putting so much information and we've been intentionally getting people to search Google for us, we are now getting a ton more connections, leads, and things because we're searchable through organic content. So that's the value of being on podcasts. That's why we regularly tell people why you do a podcast. Relationships, A, B is content development. Because you can take this segment that we've so far recorded for 30 minutes and you break it down into hundreds of different snippets, hundreds of different things, put all that information out, put the entire cost of podcast and deliver and upload into the internet, upload it into ChatGPT, and now you could be seen. Now you're searchable. Now you could be found. And now you're a differentiator compared to your competition. This is part of that engine creating in the marketing side so you can be found. You know, Kevin, how did you find me? You probably found me because we're searchable now, right? And when I started out back in 2000, I was not. 2020, I was not because of this DJ Carl Cox. And now because of the different changes we're making, now we are. So that's part of the power of creating content, the why behind it, and why the value it creates.
You couldn't have said that any better, and it's from the fact is you just need to put yourself out there. No one's going to do it for you at all. And you got to do time and time after again, brick by brick to get to where you want to go. And now where you were, you're able to differentiate yourself between the DJ Carl and the entrepreneur Carl. And it's really hard to get that SEO in place, especially if this other guy is a huge person. And at the time in 2020 with you, a lot of people knew who you were. But 7 years now, and you're trying to get to at least, was it 10,000 people?
10,000. Yep. Business owners.
Easily,
Yep. Business, yep.
easily going to get that, especially with what you're going so far. For the individuals in the business consulting world, if you could distill one type of wisdom onto them, especially people who are looking to get into the space, people who are already in the space, well, what should they adopt?
Yes. Humility and curiosity in action. Right. So be humble. So be curious first. Be humble and aware that you don't know everything, but be wildly action oriented to learn as much as you can and to actually get things done. And I would also say this is learn who and how what you're selling. And so what I mean by that is, are you selling products that's a DIY product? Are you selling things that's done with you? Are you selling done for you? And think about that when you're developing your pricing and developing your products to be able to get things delivered. We are working on selling to all three, but the greatest value is the done for you. See, the reality is people spend a lot of time, but they're spending more time on social media and getting caught up in things that don't matter. Creators and action-oriented people is what creates value and what creates money. And so when you have those concepts I mentioned, humility, curiosity, action-oriented, that's when you can create the wealth and freedom for yourself, for your family, and make a difference for others. And more importantly, what really, really matters is making a difference for others, right? Because that's the joy. You know, we recently worked with an entrepreneur, or actually a 15-year business owner, and they weren't able to let go of their business. And through the actions that we did over a year, we now help them de-risk their company and be able to hire a general manager where they're going to move down from working 5 days a week down to 1 day a week. That changes people's lives, right? When you can get to that type of change in a business and impact and wow. And so that to me is when, I know I didn't give you one thing, but it's more than one thing, you know, to help make sure that you can maximize your potential and make the greatest difference you can in this short little time we have here on Earth.
The hardest thing that people need to understand is no one's going to work as good as you are. But if you have the trust in order for these people below you to do the job correctly and to the T, that's all it comes down to. I mean, that gentleman, as you mentioned, he's working 1 day a week now. He's probably amazed. He's ecstatic. And he has all these people that he has in his company that he trusts to build and expand and to run smoothly. It's just trust at the end of the day. It may be hard in the beginning, but as you grow and as you meet people, sure, there'll be some negative people along the way, but that's natural. That's normal in life. But it's from the fact is you have to qualify, right? So it all comes down to just qualifying people, understanding who to look out for, who to not look for in terms of business partners, colleagues, employees. There's so much factors that come into play, but it's from the fact is you won't know until you actually start it. Sure, there may be some mistakes along the way. That's normal. That's natural. Mistakes will happen. It just depends on how you would react after the fact. Would you either go down and just regret everything you've done, or would you accept what happened and then move on? And for the people that can do the other half, accepting and move on, those are the people that are going to succeed, plain and simple. For before we wrap up here, the one question I always enjoy asking people that come on, based on the experience you had in not only your personal life, but also your professional life as well, what's one habit that you carry day to day that has allowed you to succeed and get where you are today?
It's funny. I asked that question too in my podcast, and I love the answers, Kevin, that I get from it. And I'd say, the one habit that I do consistently is, is frankly, I have a faith side component behind me, and it's sticking to whenever I stick and start with reading or listening or and reinforcing my faith, my belief in God. That sets the foundation for everything else. And it's amazing what that does. It truly helps me be a better person, helps me be a better husband, helps me be a better father, helps me be a better manager, helps me be a better consultant, and helps make sure I keep all things in perspective, as we're going through it. And so I would say that's definitely the most important habit that's helped me to have an impact.
We may not know what's going to happen in the future, but as long as we believe in God, we believe that He knows the way, that's all that matters. As I mentioned, you're going into the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. But if you have your belief in God, what more could you ask for? That's all it comes down to. For anyone who's listening or watching this, what's the best place for them to reach out to you and or the business?
Yeah, thank you. So I encourage you to, well, first of all, I'll be, Kevin, I don't do this on every podcast, but I'll do this for your guest if they're interested. So first of all, they can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll give you my email actually, Carl J. Cox, CarlJCox at 40strategy.com. It's 40strategy.com. So you could send me an email. We'll do best we can to respond to you as soon as we can. That's number one. Two, you can go to our website, of course, 40strategy.com, 40strategy.com. Take a look at that information. We have we put a lot of our posting on LinkedIn, and we have a blog called The Strategy for Saturday. A blog, you'd also sign up our website for that. But those are some ways to stay connected, to see what we're doing, and Love to connect. And the gift, Kevin, is if somebody does email me, we will send them a free copy of our book. And so that's Lost at CEO is the name of the book. We just released that a couple years ago. I'm now working on the second book. Very early stages, but once again, if you're a guest and people are listening to it, I'd be happy to provide them a book.
Excellent. Carl, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really do appreciate you coming on.
You bet. Thank you. It's been an honor once again to be on your show.
Beautiful. Thank you.